This week's podcast sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We're at episode 724, I think. Is that correct?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
it is.
Probably look at the show notes. It's May 24, 2023. I'm Sebastian Peak.
It's the May 24, and I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Josh Walrath.
Brett Van Sprumberg, not Kent.
Yeah, Kent was going to join us, but Windows 11 is, a horrible piece of. You can help support PC Perspective at patreon.com/PCPer and become a patron like Carl I, the ITer man.
Actually, it was like the Itter man.
Itterman? I see IT. I don't know. Is it IT or it?
Well, you
It's
know
not
what?
capitalized.
The best thing about Carl is his last name almost rhymes with vitamin. So we can go from there. Carl, you're a healthy, virile man who
Healthy?
gives us lots of money. So that makes you even more virile.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please consider us your virility statues, or not.
We don't want any pictures, though.
No.
Yes. Do not send pictures or descriptive text.
Yeah.
No fanfic.
Also, Mark P, the Wiz.
Woohoo!
Not only does he
whiz.
have distance, but he's got a good arc.
I knew where you were going with that.
Yeah. And
Oh, yeah.
Big Bronst. What is Bronst? Is that German?
I don't know, but I really liked it, so I threw the word big in front of it. It just seemed appropriate.
Oh, okay. Jeremy has copied the word in our shared document, and I assume he is now looking up the definition.
It is what I thought it was.
Is it?
Let me see this.
Can we show a picture
I'm
of it
not
on a
up
family
to my what it is that moose do when they're in the rut, but
Oh,
I am
boy.
actually right.
Okay.
That is indeed what
Oh, okay.
large
That's what that is.
bovines. That's
Okay.
what you call that.
So putting big in front of it was very appropriate, Brett. Very nice.
It was.
Nice.
Laramie, Wyoming. Josh, please
Me.
save us with your burger.
This is
segment.
This one is the, what's the bird? Is that right? The bird and the bees?
Yeah,
This
the
is a
Bronx.
slightly different thing than what I usually have. It's fried chicken breast smashed between two halves of a biscuit. So that's a biscuit that you see there for the bun.
Oh.
I probably should have turned it over and you would have figured it out a bit better because that's the
Weird
bottom.
looking. It's weird.
But that
It's
fried
been on a
chicken,
grill.
It has. It's a little smoky to it. But it's the sauce. The sauce is where it's at. It's a mixture of honey and sriracha and rolled around in there. And the combination of the freshly fried chicken and honey sriracha sauce. I mean, the whole thing just kind of melts in your mouth. It's a fabulous experience. The tater tots were on point. I can't complain. And, interestingly enough, someone who listens to our podcast actually came through Laramie and
Stole it
had
on
the
you?
popper. He had
Wow.
he visited Born in the Barn and he had the popper. I am hoping that Sebastian, there you go. Jake Fellows, podcast listener. He went to
He's a
Born in
good
the Barn.
fellow.
He got the popper. It was
Nice.
great. He'll be back. Look at those tots.
It does look better in the
Yeah.
restaurant.
He
doesn't it?
took a nice photo.
It's amazing what modern cell phones can do.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
So, yeah, no, but he made an excellent choice with the popper.
Let's make everyone really happy now,
Yeah, let's.
or really upset, or
we can
both.
make them happy. We can give people what they want.
I want to see a 30-second clip of your review right now.
I was thinking about using it as B-roll. I mean, I didn't work that hard on it. I worked probably 4 to 6 hours.
I want to see
ended
the
up
comments
Being
turned
called
into
Time
a
well
lyrics.
spent.
Reddit video. That was so poorly received that even though it had only around 250 views, I felt like I was just swimming in extremely negative comments. Not just like, oh, this is a stupid product, I hate this. It was, basically that we had no integrity.
Was it toxic? Was it
very
a toxic environment?
I decided, you know what? We're not going to make any money off of this video.
Hey, every comment is a view.
Sure, but it wasn't worth it to me. This is not worth just selling out.
So much negativity.
To stir up negativity for a few dollars in YouTube revenue. When
Have you considered not reading the comments?
Not really, because the whole point of the video was, here's the product. I'm not going to tell you whether I think it's good or not. I'm just going to tell you what the specs are. I showed the specs on the screen. And
You're not allowed to do that.
I pointed out that the memory bandwidth was pretty weak because it's only 288 gigabytes per second.
Yeah, but it's got 32 megs of L2 cache.
Yeah.
And its effective bandwidth is 584 megabytes per
I ignore
second.
AMD's
Gigabytes.
effective bandwidth too. So
Yeah.
Fair.
anyway,
You don't.
YouTube chat asks to make it a Patreon exclusive. We might.
No, I'll put it
consider
on. I'll put it on Patreon. I should have first. Here's what I should do. I should do what other content creators that I follow have mentioned, which is if they're on the fence about a video, they send it to Patreon, and then they say, "Hey, what do you guys think?" The problem was it needed to be timely. I wanted to have it out with the launch, and I was actually working on it late at night the night before, even though I had to get up early and take my son to school. And all I could manage staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning was to get a quick written review up and saved so I could publish it in a parking lot on my phone on my way home from dropping my son off at school at 9:01.
You still do reviews on your phone?
I had no choice because I was out of time.
Okay.
So then I wrote like my last couple lines on my phone and hit publish at 9:01 a.m. I got home and I quickly recorded the voiceover, cut down the voiceover. It kept on deleting stuff. Like, I want to make this video short. People aren't going to watch some 9-minute video about this graphics card. How about 5? And then I cut it all the way down to 3. And at the end, I was just like, hey, tell us what you think of this product. Tell me, blah, blah, blah. Because I just tried to make it like kind of tongue in cheek. And it was just like, here's what it is. And also I didn't do enough testing because I decided before the review to spin up a new test bed. I had this bright idea that, and actually this is all because I was initially briefed on the AMD card and I thought we were just doing the 7600 this week. Mm-hmm. And then I think a couple days later, I got the email from NVIDIA saying, hey, something about this card. I'm pretty sure that was the timing. I think I heard about AMD in advance of NVIDIA. So my plan went into action to set up a new mid-range, what I called mid-range test bed, where it's not the 13900 KS and 7200 DDR5 and all this other stuff. I said, hey, I'll just put together Core i5 13600K on a DDR4 Intel motherboard and make a system that you could actually afford to buy that makes a lot more sense for a low-end card. Cards under $400 will go on this test bed, 500 and up will go on the big test bed. And so I had to do all this new testing, and the new testing took a long time because I was testing 7 cards as fast as I could on a brand new test bed, and I had 4 days. Plus, there's a bunch of other stuff going on, and I'm making excuses. I mean, today, for example, I spent the better part of my day chaperoning a school field trip for my son's first grade class. Mm-hmm. So
those
stuff like
fun.
that
always
takes up hours and hours of time. So the review
you signed
was
off
not
with
as complete
your
as I wanted it to be.
You signed off with your moniker Seb's 2 cents.
Yeah, exactly. So the review, as I published it, only had 6 benchmark result charts plus a power draw chart. And I thought it was pretty, I mean, what else do you want to see? It's 8% faster than the 3060 Ti. And it's the same price and has the same amount of VRAM. And it actually has a lot less memory bandwidth, which means in certain applications, it's actually slower than the 3060 Ti if they're very like memory bandwidth dependent. So if you didn't know about this product, it's a $400 GPU in 2023, which is absolutely...
A GPU I can buy for $400?
Well, right, because no one wants it, right? It's a GPU in 2023 with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and it's not $100. So since it is not an ultra budget thing you'd go find on a Best Buy shelf for $99 because you need a display out, it's not acceptable to have 8 gigabytes of VRAM anymore, and I've just accepted this. I don't think that it's as big of a deal for the games I have traditionally tested, but it definitely is for some of these newer titles, and it's been well documented. And it's out there for you to see that this is just an insufficient amount of VRAM. And when you're paying $400, you expect more, and this should have been released with 16 gigabytes of memory, period. What stinks about it, though, besides that, is you can't really save this by just releasing the 16 gigabyte product later on. It doesn't have the bandwidth. So your effective bandwidth, not counting the L2 cache effect and all that, is 288 gigabytes per second. That is significantly lower than the 3060 Ti, which was on a 256-bit bus. But it's a very small chip. It kind of feels like a mobile product.
Sub 200 millimeter.
Yes.
That's and to be charging $400 for it is a little. Well, I mean, people are mad for a reason. I mean, we do expect
Everything costs too much.
We do expect a little bit better performance from a new generation of cards, and that shift of performance downwards from the previous generation. But this is, like you said, it averages 8% faster than the 3060 Ti, and it costs the same. And even though power draw is fantastic, unless you've got like a 1070, GTX 1070, or, maybe you're one of those people holding on for dear life, an RX 580, then this would be a more reasonable upgrade for you, because it's got the bells and whistles, it's got the AV1 encode, it's got the DLSS 3. There are simply feature advantages to the chip, but if you're just looking at base performance, if the game that you play most of the time is still graphically challenging but doesn't have DLSS or FSAA or I can't remember, FSR, then you're not gaining a whole lot, and especially if you got like a 3060 Ti, why would you upgrade?
I wouldn't.
You probably bought it for $500 back in the day, and you're going to replace it with a $400 product that is a few percent faster. And though where DLSS 3 and frame generation really shine, are you playing those 1 or 2 or 3 games? I mean, 98% of the games out there, I mean, stuff people still play Red Dead Redemption. And even though they, did put in DLSS and FSR, I don't think it's DLSS 3.
The number of DLSS 3 things are going up, but that's not the point. And
Yeah.
talking about DLSS plus frame generation is not going to make anybody happy. The old card was 448 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, and the new one is 288. The raw hardware is what people care about with this launch. So, I mean, this is the replacement for the 3060 Ti. It's the 4060 Ti, and it's a weaker card.
And okay, the die size on that 3060 Ti was double that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still paying the same MSRP.
Is this a mobile part at this size and this power consumption? Is this more in line with
because it's a by
mobile
8.
part? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
It is. It's a mobile card.
Oh, they're not the
Yeah,
first
the
ones to
8
do
nanometer Samsung was not a great process.
No.
I mean, it did fine, but it was not great. And so TSMC 4N is actually pretty stinking good. Sadly, the reality is it is very expensive to produce these chips. But it's really, they're being really hard on their core consumer. And we'll get into this later with NVIDIA's quarterly statement and where they're aiming. But I really wonder if, I mean, are they looking really at their core customers anymore? I don't know. These prices, I mean, an RTX 4080 is still $1,200, and it's a 420 millimeter square part compared to the 600 and some odd millimeters of a RTX 3080. that was sold for, well, MSRP is $699. You can finally get it again for that.
You're in a very, very, very tiny percentage of the elite, Josh, in even knowing the die size of anything in relation to anything else. I don't think anybody going into a Micro Center and shopping in the graphics card case has any idea what the die size of a particular GPU is, unless they're watching podcasts like this every week.
Well, damn it, they should.
Yeah.
But do they care? Why would I care, even if I know, like, oh, I don't know if I can pay that much because the die size on this one is bigger, so that's harder to produce and expensive.
It's cheap.
More expensive.
It's cheaper to produce this one.
Okay, smaller die size, more chips per wafer.
Right.
Wafer has a fixed cost.
Right.
So you're going to, each die, each good die. Yeah.
About the cost of the wafer. Anyway, here's TechSpot's review, and the reason I pulled this up is because screenshots of hardware and box reviews are always what everybody uses as the reference for performance for every card, it seems. Here we have Fortnite tested at 1080p epic quality, and the 4060 Ti manages a few frames more than the 3060 Ti, 130 versus 123. Very little impact there. Moving up to 1440, the 3060 is slightly faster. I mean, it's margin of error. We're talking 90 to 89, but effectively they're tied. Anyway, forget about Fortnite. Resident Evil 4, the 4060 Ti manages to eke out a small victory over the 3070, actually. But it depends on the game, and it's either going to be trading blows with the 3070 or just a little bit faster than the 3060, or maybe even slower if you start pushing it
and then they went
resolution.
1440.
Yeah, here we go. Plague Tale Requiem. Maybe a little bit more memory bandwidth dependent. 4060 Ti and the 3060 Ti are effectively tied. It's margin of error there.
Look at that 6700 XT.
Yep. Still hanging on there.
Yeah, the 6700 XT was
less.
a standout in my testing
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
F122. 4060 Ti was slightly faster than the 3070.
Yeah, because again, they're going back to 1080p.
And then at 1440, actually that one kind of held on. But that one's more DXR. It's a DX12 Ultimate game.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk.
Now, here is about the only excuse for it is when you involve ray tracing. It does actually ray trace a bit better than its older brother.
Sure.
Not by a huge amount.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're addicted to is, ray trace gaming at 1080p, and you're 2 or 3 generations behind, then maybe. But if you're 1 generation, no, this is not an upgrade to the 3060.
The little bit of DLSS testing I did in the ray trace title was Cyberpunk 1440 ray traced ultra preset. This was the one time I could double the effective perceived performance of a 3060 Ti. With DLSS set to the quality setting, the 4060 Ti without frame generation was a little faster. It went from 44 frames per second to 52. But then when I turned on frame generation, of course, now I'm up to 89.5 frames per second. So I'm literally doubling the performance, the perceived performance.
Do you have any latency issues when, with moving and stuff, when you enable frame generation? Do you notice that? Is it...
No, not when I'm running a canned benchmark, Josh.
Oh, well, okay. Never mind.
So enough about the 4060 Ti. There was another graphics card released just 24 hours later, and it was the Radeon RX 7600, not XT. I suspect the XT will be a 16 gigabyte card. So, and who knows, maybe this was the XT originally, and then because 8 gigabytes of VRAM has become the hottest topic in the history of computer hardware, it's just not a good look to release an 8 gigabyte.
Well, at least AMD cut $30 off the price.
They did right before launch. We were notified that the price was moving to $269.99. We'd previously been told $299.
Sweet.
It's not a big drop, but that's 10% off the price before it even
At
launches.
this price point, $30 is big.
And you know what? This could be the 8 gigabyte card to get. I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say that. I'm going to buy an 8 gigabyte card.
Well, that's because you're an AMD fanboy now.
Well,
Why not? No one knows where you live. It's fine.
if you're watching...
I mean, I'll back you up on that too, Sebastian.
Yeah.
I was much more impressed by this one.
If
Still
not talking
disappointed,
about-
but much more impressed.
I'm not talking about last gen. If you're talking about last gen, get a card like this. I'm holding in my hands. This is an XFX Merc 319 version of the RX 6700 XT. So get yourself a card like this, whether it's the 6700 XT, 6650 XT, whatever in this. I think you can get cards like this in around the $350 price range. I was looking on Amazon yesterday. So
they dropped today.
Oh, they did. That's nice.
Yeah.
320 is, and I think a couple of bucks more will give you a 6750 XT.
Nice.
Yep.
AMD is clearly leaning on their previous generation heavily because look at this table here. This is not me being lazy. This is literally the entire RX 7000 lineup on your screen right now. It's just the RX 7600, and then it jumps all the way to the 7900 XT, and then the XTX. There's nothing in between. You have a $269 card, and then it jumps up to a card that is currently selling for $799.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand this, but except for the fact that they have a lot of product in the 6000 series still in the retail pipeline.
Yeah,
so
but have you ever seen a product age as well as the RX 6000 series? Because in between the 6700, 6800, 6800 XT, 6900 XT, whatever, they all seem to have improved in performance quite a bit. And all of them, from the 6700 up, are more than 8 gigs. I mean, it just... It has worked out for AMD that they ordered all those extra parts during the crypto time because, yeah, they can still sell them and they're still competitive in terms of, overall power consumption is a little bit higher than the 4000 series, but they've got the features covered and memory density definitely covered.
Good question from the chat. They didn't fold down PCIe 4.0 by 8 on this, did they? They go full 16?
No. None of the cards
Nope.
released
That's full
this
16,
week are
sorry.
by 16. They're both by 8.
By 8.
Oh, more by 8. Oh.
Because, like I was saying before we started the show, these kind of feel like mobile parts to me. Tiny,
Well,
tiny
what's
size.
interesting about the this one is it's not chiplet. It is one single die
Monolithic.
Yeah, and that's another thing about
indication.
But no, AMD's got a long history of when they put out a new generation, they release the low-end card or the mobile card first. Or in this case, they combine them into one, but they didn't launch it first. We got the high-end. But they like to spread out their release. And, I'm sure a bit of that is just sort of price sniping to try and figure out what can we charge for this thing. We thought we were going to be able to charge this, but damn you, NVIDIA, damn you all to hell, and Intel do. So now they sort of space it out. But it is weird having this giant GPU sandwich with nothing in the middle. You've got the very top, you got the very bottom, but the meat where most people are going to be buying is still not there. And we're hearing very little about it too, which is a little annoying. So at least they didn't go with just the low end for the launch.
Oh, yeah. The high-end stuff being out there, certainly, now, especially now that the XT is $800. But, yeah, speaking of the XT and this card, I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see the 3 cards in the current gen lineup. The 7600 is based on RDNA 3. It's not a rebranded RDNA 2 part. It has 32 CUs. That means 2048 stream processors. Game clock is pretty high. Game and boost clocks is 2.25 gigahertz game and 2.6 25 gigahertz boost. 8 gigs of memory in 2023. I know.
Don't mention the bandwidth.
And it's the same speed as the 4060 Ti. It's 18 gigabit effective memory throughput, 128-bit memory interface, 288 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. That's the same as the 4060 Ti before factoring in Infinity Cache. Now, their Infinity Cache on this is 32 megs, which is the same as the large 32 meg L2 cache on the 4060 Ti. So in a lot of ways, this is a very similar product to that 4060 Ti, at least on paper. And it's a
don't compare it to it because they'll get upset.
But it's a 6 nanometer part, so it's 204 millimeters square on a slightly. Actually, 6 nanometer is their kind of cost optimized, not as high speed as 5 nanometers. The new and TSMC 4N is a modified 5 nanometer. But again, this is all marketing speak anymore.
Yeah.
But Sapphire sent over the Pulse card, and it's a Pulse card, which means it's got kind of an understated look, no RGB, quiet.
It's not smaller?
This looks, I always have to send them back. So
It's got pass-through.
I couldn't grab another one to compare it to. I had the 6500 XT is my most recent one I got.
It looks tiny.
It's pretty small. It's about the same size as the NVIDIA card. And again,
Looks like the size of many of the old RX 580s, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that. Good complement of display outputs. You've got 3 display ports and HDMI. It's a single power connector on this one.
So it's not 12 PVR?
No 12-volt high power on this one. And then if you want to know what performance is like, it is faster than a 6600 XT. It is not as fast as a 6700 XT. I don't have a 6650 or a 6700 non-XT on hand to compare it to.
It stomps them by 8 to 30%, depending on the game.
This is a little bit slower than a 3060 Ti, but it's $269. And actually, hey, look at this. In Far Cry 6, this is a better example of a more AMD-optimized title, and it is faster than 3060 Ti in this game by about a frame and a half per second. So you're getting closer to 3070 levels of performance in this card, depending on the game. Here we are in Cyberpunk, and it kind of goes right back to that, just behind the 3060 Ti range. But anyway, power draw with this card is higher than advertised. It's kind of the trend with RDNA 3. I don't know how they exactly arrive at 165 watts, because this thing averages a lot higher than that, and it was frequently over 180 watts during testing. So it's just not. It's not a super.
Throw out
efficient,
a bunch of the spikes until you hit an average of 165 watts, and
I guess
then you go with it.
If you factor in idle power, then certainly.
Well, Sapphire could be throwing some extra sauce in there.
I have to,
power draw.
Produce the numbers for the stock one, because I don't know if you can see it behind me. But I have the rare AMD made 7600.
Oh, look at that.
Nice box.
Which it's another one of those things
Thank you.
where Ed is really nice to us, and he's going to send us stuff and let us borrow it to do our reviews. And
Thanks, Ed.
he reached out.
Ed, you're a good man.
He reached out before AMD did. And I said, yes, put me on your list. So I took care of him in his review for day one.
Ed's list?
But I have to send back the card, so at least I will be left with one. It'll be the AMD made one. So when I retest that one, it'll be like 1080 Ultra, 1440 High, and actually get a feel for what the card can really do, and then start comparing it against the rest of the stuff. So what else is there to say? It's the RX 7600. It's $269.
It's $269. It's modern.
It's the
Graphics.
8 gigabyte card of the year.
Yeah.
Yay.
It would
if that
be
ain't
a nice
damning with faint
upgrade from like a
praise.
1660 GTX.
Yes.
GTX
Yep.
1660.
Or say you're one of those desperate people who bought a 6500 XT during mining when you couldn't
would
buy anything
notice.
else.
Oh, yeah.
You would
Be a
notice.
big upgrade for those people. It's just a short time ago, a vanilla 6600 was kind of in this price range, and then like the 6600 XTs were selling for around this. Now you can get 6700 XT for around 320, and I would absolutely do that. If you can afford the $50 or $60 difference, buy a 6700 XT, or whatever is available in that price range. But
Or you could go with the next story, our mandatory Intel GPU coverage.
Dun dun dun.
oh, that's right. Yeah, earlier today, the big news was that the Arc A750 had hit 199, but that was temporary apparently, because this was at Newegg, I thought, and this is sold and shipped by Newegg, and it's $229.99.
Aw.
So
It was at Newegg earlier today, and when I checked in on it, I was still hoping it would be 199, but no.
somebody in YouTube said the mediocrity GPU Olympics.
You've got it.
Yeah,
There's the podcast title.
hooray!
The of all of the video cards that usually I have reviewed, The budget ones were probably the most interesting because you could find really interesting corner cases where they would either fall down or they would, they would overproduce in results. And, most people, especially people who are enthusiasts and play a lot of games, it's, typically 15-year-olds through 30. And a good portion of them just simply can't afford a $600 to $1,000 graphics card. So they save up their money in between everything else, and they stretch to get to 250. And it's something that is so sorely needed in this market. I mean, if NVIDIA and AMD really want to get PC graphics and gaming to where it needs to be, they've got to reach down to these people because they drive. I mean, if you look at any of these esports people, there's not 50-year-old guys like me sitting on there. It's all the young pups. And it has been an area that has been extremely neglected over the past 4 years, I think. And I mean, we have some options. And I mean, there's one reason why the RX 580 was as popular as it was, because it was inexpensive. It was an 8 gig card and it could play most stuff at 1080p. And, people could afford it. So get with it, people. That's my soapbox.
Or go to bestbuy.com, which I put up on the screen a minute ago. It's still $199 for the A750 at Best Buy, and that's with free shipping.
That's still a really good card. Mm-hmm. And it's getting better with every driver release.
But Josh,
there's still things that it falls down on.
Yeah, like
definitely
8 gigabytes of VRAM and current.
You have the codec that you talked about earlier, the AV1.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's going to be some reasonable. Well, they say it's going to be reasonable ray tracing. Yeah, maybe.
Mm.
Sure. XESS.
XESS.
Yeah. Excess
for your scaling needs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pause here for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
A quick frozen pizza can be okay in a pinch, but I actually like to cook a meal every now and then. I've had recipes in hand while walking around the grocery store trying to find all the ingredients. Hey, I'm better with the search engine, okay? How about no more scouring the grocery store for that one ingredient to complete a recipe? HelloFresh takes away that hassle by delivering fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients so you have exactly what you need and helps you cut down on food waste. We were pleasantly impressed with our entire package from HelloFresh. Just recently, we made our first meal, delicious, creamy tomato soup with sausage, in about 20 minutes. All the ingredients were clearly proportioned for 2 or 4 people, well marked, and the recipe card was informative and super easy to follow. The finished soup was fantastic, and well accompanied by their oven-baked cheesy baguettes as a side. Again, supplied as uncooked ingredients, just like everything else. The meal options at HelloFresh will make dinner time deliciously easy. I bet you can even please your picky eaters. Choose from the different meal plans like Fit and Wholesome, Pescatarian, or even Veggie. For the busy among us, they have a quick and easy, and they're all-around crowd pleaser with a family-friendly plan. I'm telling you, they'll have a meal plan that suits your lifestyle. Plus, you can swap out proteins and sides to your liking. Go to HelloFresh.com/PCPer16 and use code PCPer16 for 16 free meals and free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/PCPer16 with code PCPer16 for 16 free meals and free shipping. Try HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
All right. Well, hey, we've talked a lot about these graphics cards NVIDIA and AMD released this week and the excitement of mediocrity in our hobby. So how about talking about how much money NVIDIA is making, Josh?
Gosh, do I have to? Yeah. Okay, so there's this thing called AI. And when ChatGPT was released and people got really excited about it, people like Microsoft ordered up thousands and thousands of extremely expensive NVIDIA cards. What, H100? Is that what the latest one is? I can't remember all of the code names. It's a big chunk of change for each one, and they're printing money. So anyway, if you remember Q4 fiscal year 23, which of course NVIDIA has a really kind of messed up reporting schedule due to when they did an IPO and decisions they did with accounting way back in the late 90s. So it's always off. But it was the previous quarter. So it would be Q1 for most normal people, but NVIDIA calls that Q4 fiscal year 2023. They made $6 billion. Their data center was at $3.6 billion. Their gaming was at $1.31 billion. Professional visualization, auto, everything, it all adds up to $6 billion per quarter. Well, this quarter, which most people would call Q2 2023, but they call Q1 2024, they made $7.2 billion. Well, $7.192 billion, if you want to be exact. Their data center jumped up $600+ million, and their gaming jumped up $400 million. So NVIDIA's done well with, even though they've received a lot of negative press about their pricing and performance, because an RTX 4080 is still $1,200 card, which previous generation would be $699, but we don't need to go there. Apparently people are still buying their cards, and what's more, their data center is now nearly double the income of gaming, which is kind of scary. Their margins are 65% and climbing. So they're doing well as a company. And the bombshell that they dropped is they expect revenue to climb from $7.2 billion this quarter to an easy $11 billion next, which just kind of shows you how many DG servers they're probably shipping with Grace and the M100. That's what it is. Their data center is just going to explode. And they're the only ones. I mean, AMD's, probably going to see some boost there, especially if they ever announce their MI300 series. But software, CUDA, how close NVIDIA is with the AI programs that are out there, it's just, they're printing money, and it's going to be kind of crazy. They're just separating themselves from the crowd. Good on you, NVIDIA, but I hope that I really do hope that they remember where they came from, and they throw the people who have, throw us a bone, man.
I don't know that they're going to throw us a bone, Josh.
I don't know.
They can make so much more money off of these new areas, and the people that want to make money off of NVIDIA are making so much money off of these new areas that...
Yeah. But in just, after they announced that, their share price went up something insane, like 20.
Yeah.
Better part of 25%.
Yeah, it's at currently, after hours trading has it up 24.63%. That's up 75.22.
That's absurd.
That's
well, you know what it is.
That's not for an after hours.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what it is? A bunch of the stockbrokers are using NVIDIA products to predict stock futures. And so they've all now just sort of popped on a ChatGPT, and they just or ChatGPT, and they artificially boosted their price because now they're secret stockholders.
And look at their low for the past year.
Yeah,
$108, and now they're up around 400. It's
insane. It makes no sense.
It must be good to be Jensen Huang.
He can afford more spatulas.
He can. He could put large servers in his oven for fun.
Exactly. And
What do
he's
you
done
cook
it
on?
a stream
Tesla.
before. Okay. Off this topic to Microsoft Surface Pro X. Or do they call it 10? Is it like Apple where you have to call X?
I
10
don't know. I've
so
never
the
bought a
Roman?
Surface in my life, so
Yeah. Well, you need to. Come on, you work
it's a Surface Pro
in
X.
IT. You need to familiarize yourself with the world's best hardware to run Windows.
Yeah, that's why I didn't buy a Surface.
Oh,
Actually, that's a shot
ouch.
at arm, and I shouldn't take a shot at arm.
wow. Okay. So what's going on with these cameras? Why is this a certificate issue? Are these secure cameras? Is this Face ID?
That's the best part about it, is why is there a certificate involved in this at all? So yeah, earlier this week, all of a sudden, anyone who had a Surface Pro X, the camera stopped working. Straight out, just, nope, it doesn't work anymore. And so a bunch of people, of course, I don't know, apparently when you're a Surface owner, you like to dig around in your hardware, because, I mean, you're probably not using it for production. And they, lo and behold, found out that if you turned the system date back to the 22nd, all of a sudden the camera worked again, and you didn't get the media capture failed event. So they haven't found the certificate. They don't know why a certificate is involved in this. But they definitely know that if you turn your system time back, it suddenly starts to work. And totally doesn't breach HTTPS or a bunch of the other authentication methods that you use that kind of depend on you to be on the right date.
You can imagine as an assembler of discrete components that they're buying sort of off the shelf as they go with like, oh, we want a camera, we need a keyboard, we need a screen. You can imagine that the way that they put these things together might have protocols that rely upon certain ways of speaking to each other that aren't proprietary, that may use standard socket layers or even HTTP, if you can imagine that. And you could see, even if it wasn't like an HTTP-based protocol, it was just sort of a TCP IP socket sort of based thing across.
Oh, even them, yeah. When did you receive this packet?
But they still want that cryptographically signed, even internally to the system, because they're both, as a receiver and a sender, prescribing to a published API. So you can kind of imagine your way to, so the manufacturer of the camera supplied a certificate with the device that says, here's how you know that you're talking to our legitimate camera hardware.
And their GoDaddy expired on the 22nd.
Right? Those all come with an expiration date, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, if anyone tries to sell you an eternal cert, don't buy it.
No.
On a brighter note, Microsoft is going to allow Internet Explorer 11 to haunt Windows some more. Because, organizations, they like to use their IE internally for their intranets and stuff, so. Or is this...
Yeah,
be
but that's
amazed
usually
how
9.
many accounting and timesheet programs still require Internet Explorer.
I would not be, Josh. I would not be surprised at all. The fight to get rid of them off of IE9 was hard enough. If I tell them, though, that, Edge is just Chrome, it just looks different. You get a little more traction, but it's still spinning bald tires on a mud patch.
Well, some of what they're hanging on to are the underlying component models so that certain programs can instantiate them still so that they're carrying that along. And they're leaving it up to organizations on whether or not that they retire the visual references to IE11, meaning the desktop icons or finding them in the applications folders or anything like that and burying them or turning them off.
It's the last one that runs Silverlight.
Yeah.
No, that's
you might
10,
be right.
I think 10.
Gosh.
I don't think 11 did it.
Yeah, well.
Let's pause here for our second podcast sponsor.
As a software engineer, it's not always straightforward to find just the right place to practice your craft. People like us can often find it difficult to settle into just the right role for our careers. Well, consider Bloomberg. They're out there working to build a top-notch information network for financial professionals, and they're looking for engineers to join their team. Personally, I know that I've always wanted to work on challenging projects that had real impact on actual shipping products and services, but sometimes that has just not worked out. While I've not yet worked for Bloomberg, they're forward-looking and are building tools their clients will come to rely on for systems that matter in solving real-world complex problems across global capital markets. They're working in real-time market and enterprise data with sophisticated analytics that are touched by over 350,000 financial professionals. Bloomberg systems operate at tremendous scale with over 300 billion, yes, B as in billion, market messages daily. So many of you will already be up to speed on the majority of Bloomberg software, as it's built in C++, JavaScript, and Python. So you're obviously not going to get locked into a proprietary shop, as Bloomberg's engineers are active members of the open source community in both leveraging and making commits back to many projects. Learn more about the opportunities that await you by visiting bloomberg.com/careers. That's bloomberg.com/careers.
We're back, and we're going to talk about sudden death. We're not talking about playoff at the U.S. Open or something. Actually, they play an 18-hole playoff. What am I talking about?
Or hockey.
You
We're not
meant
talking
hockey.
about hockey.
Okay.
Not talking about hockey.
Okay. It's the Sandisk Extreme. How extreme is it, Jeremy?
It's so extreme, it causes catastrophic data loss after sustained writes because it is just that extreme.
Nice.
Yes. I mean, you really want to know that your drive is so extreme it can write itself to death. Well, it's not that it actually kills the drive; it just destroys the entire.
The internal file system?
Yes. I was going to say fat, but we've moved on from fat a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just an old memory. So yeah, it just completely destroys the file system. Some people have got access to fairly decent and ridiculously expensive data recovery tools and been able to get some back. But for the vast majority of people, this portable drive, the 4 terabyte and the 2 terabyte, just boom, that's it. Everything's gone. There's also been some reports that the Pro variant, the 4 terabyte one, have also been having an issue, but that's sort of been hit or miss. But the Extremes, specifically the Extreme V2, the Extreme V2 has just been boom, gone. Sandisk has responded to say that they're aware of the problem and we're going to look at putting up a firmware patch at some point. You're free to call our customer service support team, but we're not really actually going to give you a date on when this firmware is going to arrive, nor is there any sort of idea about if they're going to, honor refunds from people who wanted a portable backup drive and found out that it was just, a little piece of expensive hell.
Sorry.
Yeah, this would be very devastating for people that, use this as a backup device. If you were just carrying your Linux ISOs from house to house, I mean, that wouldn't be so horrible. But, this could really hurt a lot of people. And yes, Sandisk is not being exactly proactive about dealing with it.
Now, some actual good news from Microsoft on the Windows front. And this has been a long time coming. And apparently it's real. It's really real. RGB control will hit Windows
RGB-itis. It's spreading everywhere.
Later this month.
Speaking of saving us from fresh hells, Windows 11 could finally be the unifying application for your RGB gear. It may not take it as far as Corsair's or whoever's control software is capable of taking the RGB lighting and effects. It's at least a unifying moment for doing things like simple effects and unifying color. And
Does it have an
there's been so many problems with a lot of these driver bits that have come up with RGB RAM or graphics cards or whatever that have had security issues or keyboards, security problems, conflicts, just plain crashes. You trace wasted CPU cycles to some of these things sometimes. It's, again, a brightly lit hell of RGB driver software. This is one thing that I would welcome in Windows, to just say, can I just set this to blue, red, whatever, and just let it go, and just have one piece of software, because that's kind of all I want to be able to do. So thank you, Microsoft. I don't say that very often. Weird.
You're just jealous because your operating system doesn't do it.
Are they leveraging the power of
OpenRGB, man,
for this?
Because I would have
they could
5
be.
different applications on my machine if I were to actually want to control my
Yeah, it
RGB,
sucks.
which I don't. Out of control RGB.
This is for real. We talked about this a while ago, but this is for real coming to Windows Advance or early access users very, very soon.
Yeah, and a couple of
So
other features too.
It's imminent. It's imminent.
But that's why I love Noctua. Ain't a single piece of RGB-itis on them yet.
That will probably.
Although they already started doing them in black, so
Exactly.
we're on a borderline. They're
already-
going to start doing it, but
Look, when Be Quiet started doing RGB, you knew that it had taken over the industry. Speaking of Windows and features coming to Windows, how about this? WinRAR native RAR support, if that's how you pronounce it. RAR.
Yeah.
Rawr.
I always said RAR.
You always stop stealing WinRAR because you don't have to anymore because it's going to be built into Windows. And 7Z.
and I'm still going to use 7-zip.
So am
I
I.
don't care.
I think tar is actually coming as native support
Yes.
as well, which is just crazy.
Well, it does crappy tar already, but yeah, I wouldn't trust it.
Anyway, another example of embrace and extend. No more third-party full-featured software. We're going to pull that inside, and you'll be safe.
And
Oh,
it'll
this
be
stuff is
living on
open
the
source?
cloud,
All right, we'll
and
just
you'll
put
pay a
that right in.
subscription for it.
I think what I heard was, oh, that open source was a good idea, or whatever you're doing over there. Well, we'll turn that into something proprietary and then extend it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's time for Security Corner, and our first story is about Cisco, who is warned of critical switch bugs with public exploit code.
Another nasty one. Jeremy, I know you had originally linked this. You can go ahead unless you want me to talk about it.
Oh, go for it, because, all I remember of it is that there's a horrible public exploit code, and we don't feel like patching it. So,
Yeah, that's kind of the short hairs of this one. All 4 of these security flaws that have been noted in this particular article reach almost a 10. I'm not sure why they're not quite at a 10, but they have a maximum security issue exploit associated with them. Unauthenticated attackers allowed to execute arbitrary code with root privileges on compromised devices. And you know what? You might feel bad for the number of people who have these in their homes. These are all business users. This is the 200, 300, and 500 series small business switches that could potentially still be in use, but because, I'm sorry, those are all end-of-life products. Just buy a new Cisco device. Screw you. We're not going to patch those. And
they're
that's
certainly
essentially
affordable.
Cisco's position. Yeah. So, maybe everybody doesn't understand this, but Cisco is premiumly priced. Whether or not they are always premium performance, I don't really care. They're usually pretty good. But the point
but
is,
the best
that
thing
at
is
that
once you've
price level,
introduced Cisco into
true.
your network, you
Yep.
can't substitute anything else. You now have to go Cisco.
Russian military hackers can pwn your Cisco 200, 300, and 500 series device. For goodness sakes, get the hell off of those switches. Do something. Spend more money with Cisco. They would like that.
Don't go to Asus, though,
Okay.
because you don't run into the other problem.
Now, this next story I can scarcely believe. Google allowing a legitimate app in their Play Store to send microphone recordings every 15 minutes. The malicious iRecorder app has come to light, but its purpose remains shrouded.
Google removes these when people notify them.
Yeah, well, it started in September 2021, so
Well,
They're
that's
very
when the
effective at
legitimate. That was a legitimate
and fair.
application when it
That's
came
the
in.
twist in this, is it was legitimate for many a year, and then all of a sudden, it
Got a
changed.
rat. Got a rat.
It did indeed get a rat. For
Rat in a
those that aren't
box?
following, that is a remote access Trojan.
Yeah.
So it was an app that did have a vulnerability, much like Cisco routers we were talking about earlier. But about a year after it came out, someone managed to get a hold of it, put a Trojan in it, and no one noticed until someone in a recording and in a lab was noticing that it was doing some very strange things and decided to actually do a full, or he reported it to someone else and they did the analysis and like, oh yeah, this is not just recording the microphone, but it actually managed to do data exfiltration as well. And it sat on there for quite a while until we found out about it, like, yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, there are many tens of thousands of downloads of this one. What I don't understand is actually buried in this article, and I'm going to paraphrase here based on my recollection of it, is that there are a fair number of third-party analyzers that find these apps and notify Google, and Google eventually gets around to removing them from the Play Store. What is the purpose, especially considering that the rat that's actually embedded in this particular application was kind of a known construct? Whoever's doing this particular exfiltration of audio data used a segment of a known hacking library. I guess I'll just paraphrase and say that, and then embedded it into this iRecorder application and put that back in the Play Store. Why doesn't Google's intake and analysis system that they have talked about that, we analyze everything that gets put in the Play Store, why aren't they finding these things? What purpose does that even serve? Well, who are they protecting anyone from when a known vulnerability, an old one, sneaks into the Play Store and they wait for third-party analyzers to get back to them? I don't.
Well, I mean, would it cost more than $0 for them to hunt that down and then remove it from the Play Store?
Oh, I see your point.
It's gaming quick hits. Destiny and Halo creator Bungie is reviving the Marathon franchise. What is Marathon? Apparently, it's one
Marathon.
Of
That was.
You don't remember?
That was the
Marathon?
original. Was one of the first person shooters on Apple. I think it was only on Apple.
What?
And you are correct. It was originally came out on Apple.
Remember this?
Yep.
Well, I mean, Bungie
along with
was
Halo.
Apple only until
Yes,
Microsoft bought Bungie.
Yep. Halo
you know what? That's
originally
true,
came out
because
on Apple.
Halo was developed on like PowerPC Max, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That is
the
correct.
first
It was PowerPC Mac.
demo was, that had all the music and all that. That was run on a Mac.
Okay.
I licensed
be
my
Mac only?
PC copy of Halo using my Mac disk key.
Of course.
Anyway, Marathon came out with was a first-person shooter franchise, as Josh was talking about, that instituted a number of things that we really take for granted with first-person shooters today. Things like Mouse look. Yes, absolutely. Mouse look was one of those things where you could kind of move in one direction and kind of looking around, with the mouse in different directions or move your entire view from one place to another. They were the first person. And I mean, that's like table stakes now with all FPSs, and this Marathon game system from Bungie was the first. So they're reviving this with, I guess it's going to be nothing like previous versions of Marathon at all. It's more like it's not so much of a strategy game. It's like a retrieval sort of game, and done in a PvP first person with supposedly a lot of story and tenseness and more excitement, and it's going to be a persistent world and a what quote unquote narratively rich. I don't know to take them at their face value or whether or not Sony is just pressuring them to dredge up a successful franchise from the past and do something different with it, which is kind of the direction it seems like it might be going. I'll hold my breath on this one and not enthusiastically endorse it quite yet, although I was quite fond of the original Marathon, which is kind of today's icon in the background.
Next, it's a story about D&D. Wizards of the Coast hikes the price on D&D months after calling
story
the
about
game
Wizards of the Coast being
under monetized
themselves.
Yeah. And we don't always have to talk about video games, sometimes tabletop gaming, because I think a lot of the same people are interested in sort of the same things.
Are we going to have to pay them money now that we've mentioned tabletop gaming? Because they are getting to that point where it's like, no, even if you invent your own scenario, they kind of want to cut out of it.
They took that out.
Backtrack on that, or is that just delayed?
They backtracked. They backtracked on that.
Are you saying Gary Gygax is rolling dice in his grave?
He
I
would definitely be, and it's all natural
He's-
ones.
I was just going to say
Every single one is a natural one.
Well, that's funny. It's funny. He's
And
rolling.
so is he's
in his
rolling,
grave.
and so is Derek. I cannot remember his last name. It was Gary Gygax and Derek.
I don't remember
Wolf?
Derek's last name.
Wolf?
But yeah, it was the two of them together that started that. Hey, what if we take wargaming and make it into role playing? Wouldn't it be cool to be?
So
a
anyway,
hero?
the story here is all the physical source books that, unfortunately, with the upcoming rule changes, a lot of people are going to have to buy or rebuy, are going upwards in price, like so many things, 20%. So it looks like each book is going to roughly hit that $60 price. I know. But luckily, the virtual books are going to remain the same. I think a lot of people have suspected and have looked behind what is the reasoning for some of what WOTC is doing, is they're trying to steer
Greed?
people towards, well, there's the greed, but virtual tabletop, they think is kind of the future because they can monetize it so much more easily, in my opinion. Again, so that comes back to, I suppose, greed, what you just
So
said.
they're going to start eventually selling hats. Oh, you
D&D
actually want your
still-
virtual character to be wearing the armor that you found.
Right. D&D, and it was still amazingly successful property at $200 million a year, I guess just last year in revenue alone, just by itself separated. So there
Yeah, but there's
are
only like 20 people.
that's not exactly true.
Okay, I'm exaggerating, but
Unfortunately, it's going to cost quite a lot more to continue to buy these source books. And is it greed? Is it just steering people more towards virtual tabletop? All we know is it's WOTC.
Gotcha. Next, Hall sensors offer drop-in replacement for drifting game console joysticks.
yeah.
This could be good.
So instead of having to upgrade to a brand new like Hall joystick, these guys have actually figured out, and it's not 100%, but like definitely for PS4, you can rip out the potentiometers and drop in this fancy little Hall effects kit.
This makes so much
and away you
sense.
go.
So much sense. This sounds great.
Well, you're going to have to pay for the parts. You're going to have to assemble it yourself, but it's just magnetics for the most part. It's not horrifically difficult to do. I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, that's just brilliant. Because I went from my old Logitech Signwinder to the newer one with the Hall effect, and I love it. I mean, I'm still pissed at MechWarrior not really handling HOTAS at all, but as for the joystick, I've got no complaints. It's so much nicer. So yeah, being able to do that and to be able to do it on like a PS4 controller, or theoretically a lot of controllers are not that dissimilar. Being able to drop in a Hall effect on that, it just seems kind of nice. And you won't be able to, you just sort of hold up your controller and like, I'm not doing anything, but my character is sort of wandering off that way. I don't know why. Well, that's why.
It's almost like it wasn't obvious to the engineers, as they mentioned in the article, that when stuff actually physically rubs against each other, that it wears out eventually.
Yeah.
Huh. What a shock.
And you know what's really annoying?
Yeah.
is in order to fix that, you take it apart, but you've got to relube it again. And for that, you generally want to buy some grease. And well, you go to the automotive store, and the automotive grease is this freaking big, and all you need is this tiny little dab to fix everything. So yeah, go Hall effect. It makes more sense.
Nothing touches. It's magnetics. It's magic. It's magnets. Magnets. It's magic.
How do they work?
How do they work?
never know.
Nobody knows.
No.
Nobody knows.
Science will never understand the
Nope.
intricacies.
We'll
of
never
magneticism.
understand magnetics.
Let's move to picks of the week. Josh, please get us started.
So, you can now get a 7900 XTX for approximately $920.
AMD show.
So it's a few dollars off, and not only that, but it's 80. No, okay, not quite. So $940 essentially. But it's a well-built card, XFX Merc 310, not the 319. So it's got 300 millimeter fans, 24 gigs of RAM. So if you're in the mood for a higher end card, this is a nice one to have. And it's, again, it's below $1,000 and it's, better than stock. We like downward pricing pressure.
Jeremy, your pick. You have to unmute, though.
He does.
Well, yeah, I muted myself so you couldn't hear me do what I was doing. But I asked, did you like large NASs? And you cannot lie. Because if you're Canadian, there is an insane deal going on right now for Western Digital Red Pros and relatively decent on pluses at Memory Express. Like, we're talking 50% off or so. So if you want, grab a couple of 14 terabyte drives at $400, which is, the price that less than the price that one of them would have cost you before. This is a really good deal because you really don't want to put it on that Sandisk Extreme or on the Extreme. Sandisk Extreme, because that backup is just going to fail. So this is not a bad deal. And I'm sure that they're cheaper in America.
Oh, this is Canadian pricing?
This is Canadian pricing.
Okay.
As they tend to do.
Yeah, for some strange reason. Those are big discounts. We're talking $490 off, $365 off.
Yeah, it's just over 50% in the big one and around 50% on the others. The pluses aren't quite as good. The price itself is actually cheaper. But, it's a good deal. I'm also trying to show something off that no one has picked up on this entire podcast, which is kind of amusing.
Oh, did you get one?
No. Oh,
I'm just looking at how clean your background is. Josh has it. And
this place has been repainted.
Oh, look at that.
And not a single person noticed, you bastards.
Oh, I did, but I just haven't said anything yet. I noticed that, on your right-hand side, that you don't have patches on the wall that you can see.
No, they are
It's all
gone.
nicely painted, and all your boxes are clean and clear. And don't think I didn't notice that, because who got paid $50 extra to clean the room?
Well, I did a better job, and I didn't get shit.
That guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
You did.
But no,
Jeremy,
the review will be up next week. Someone sent me a new desk.
You missed
The
an
motorized
opportunity.
desk.
review? You're reviewing the paint that you used?
No, I got sent a new motorized desk.
Oh,
Can't you tell how I'm not moving, but yet I seem to be moving? And so there was no way to possibly get the old desk out without at least tearing apart a bit of the room. So we just went whole hog, and Chris got kind of annoyed with the shitty look of my room when he's watching the podcast. So good old set deck painter from the movies. If you're looking for a scenic sprayer or a set deck painter, there's no work in the movies right now. So he's so bored he painted the room.
Nice.
That's nice.
Except
Very
to
nice.
the edges.
Okay. Brett, your pick.
Every once in a while, I like to pull not necessarily an anti-pick, but more like an anti-technology pick, more of a lifestyle thing. And with vacations for many people fast approaching, especially this Memorial Day weekend, there's still time, I think, probably, to order one of these. Are you looking to relax a little bit on your getaway? Put a $20 hammock in your luggage. Take this with you. You'll thank me later. Normally this thing is like $70 supposedly, probably $50, $20 for a wonderful mesh hammock that weighs like 400 ounces, something ridiculously small like that. And it's a freaking hammock. I don't think I need to go on.
How much does it cost to get the things to hang it off of?
Yeah.
This actually comes with a tree wraps that are safe for the tree.
Okay.
With straps and everything. So they have the side, as you can see in this particular picture, that has we don't do that. We do this, which is 1 minute easy hang. Got a nice belt buckle and again, tree straps and stuff that comes with it. Fast hanging, nice straps and stuff. Who doesn't like a hammock?
My pick this week is actually Kent's pick, but because he had technical issues and ended up bowing out of the podcast, I am presenting it for him. It is the Sabrent, or Sabrent, it depends on how you pronounce it, 2 terabyte Rocket NVMe Gen 4 SSD with extreme performance. Whoa. This is only $119.99. That is...
it's the first gen of their Gen 4, which maxes out at 5 gigabytes per second.
Oh, dear.
Instead of the 7 something.
Only 5?
But still. Only 5.
At these prices, you could buy 2, and then you could actually copy a file over at full speed, because unless you have multiple Gen 5 devices, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, they're horrible. I don't
anywhere near
use them at all.
Oh, okay.
I've got one here somewhere, maybe. No, I think I actually sold
Everybody has one.
Yeah. No, these were a ridiculously good deal when they came out, and it's only getting better.
Yeah.
Yep, Rocket Q4 NVMe 4.0. I haven't even opened it. Still in the shiny plastic wrap.
Shiny.
I agree, Kent. Hell of a deal. Everybody should have one.
And I think that'll do it for this week's PC Perspective podcast. We want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching while you listen. Just catching us live. We do it live on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. If you want to stay up with us, or get up super early on the other side of the world, or whatever it is that you do when you're one of the people who hang out with us while we record this, we thank you. We thank all of you and our patrons and everyone who made this possible. And I'm just talking.
Like thank the Academy
just to hear myself talk.